You're stuck in my willpower 1T hold. And the usual advice, plan tighter, discipline harder, misses the mechanism. Confidence doesn't come first. It's earned after friction. If you wait for confidence, you'll wait forever. This will show the real reason your motivation dies and what to do instead. Here's what's really happening. You're not stuck on the task. You're stuck on the feeling of delay. The moment you picture doing it later, your brain flips today's action into an optional choice. Future action becomes a gamble. Today becomes not required. And that's the spell. You don't call it avoidance. You call it planning. You stand there mentally, reaching for the progress button like it's safe. But the moment you commit, the bathroom scale moment hits the one with the sticky snooze button. Every time you try to step on it, it flips to later before you even start measuring. So you negotiate with yourself. Just set it up. Just prep. Just research. Anything except the first rep that proves you're in motion. That's why motivation keeps dying. Not because you lack discipline, because you're training your nervous system to treat now as a low-value bet. Each time you delay, you collect evidence for the lie that action is harder than it really is. You're building a story where effort only feels safe when it's postponed. Think about the last time you said, I'll start after this. You didn't feel relief from being busy. You felt relief from postponing discomfort. That tiny emotional escape trains the next delay to feel normal. So here's the action. The next time you catch yourself reaching for later, you don't argue with your plan. You do 1 2-minute move on the actual task while your brain is still chanting someday. No hype, no finish, just enough friction to break the snooze pattern. Then you decide what to do next with proof, not hope. Notice the trick. You don't wait for the feeling to show up. You stop negotiating with it. You treat delay like a warning label, not a suggestion. 2 minutes is a vote for the life you want, not a rehearsal for it. Once you voted once, your brain stops demanding permission and starts cooperating. Your brain doesn't fail you with lack of willpower. It fails you with a shortcut. Picture a vending machine with a missing label. You still want the snack, but every time you walk up, you hesitate. You reread the options. You rehearse the decision like it might change. The snack isn't expensive. The constant refiguring is. Now, zoom into your life. The first step feels small, set up the workout. Open the doc, start the email. But the decision isn't pre-made. So your mind does a fast simulation. I'll deal with it when motivation shows up. Then it caches that route. You've basically installed a default setting. Next time, the first step shows up again, and your brain treats it like a fresh choice. Choice costs effort. Effort gets spent before you even start. That's the hidden tax. Repeated decision-making you never notice until you're tired and still not moving. Keep this mechanism in your head. Cache choices decide what now feels like. And if now is trained as optional, your nervous system will keep demanding the postponed version. You don't run out of motivation. You get trapped in decision deferral. That's the real willpower killer. Think of a mailbox that only delivers letters at sunrise tomorrow. Every night you write the note, I'll start tomorrow. The system dutifully waits. Then tomorrow arrives, and you're still holding the pen, staring at the same blank decision. Here's the contradiction. You believe you're preparing, but you're actually resetting. You're forcing future you to renegotiate the same starting conditions: where to begin, what to tolerate, what to postpone. No momentum gets to compound, because every day starts like day one. Another fresh debate with your own procrastination. The cost is subtle. You wake up with energy, then you spend it on arguing with yourself before you even touch the task. That's why trying again doesn't feel like progress. It feels like starting over. So here's the action. Make the start decision once today. In writing, write down to the exact first move and lock it to a specific time so tomorrow can't hold the pen. Next, we're going to make that lock automatic. The trap isn't a pause, not the work. When you wait for perfect conditions, you're not buying time. You're training an identity system. Picture a treadmill that starts on easy speed. You stand there staring at the controls, waiting for the ramp to feel safe. Every second you refuse to step on, your legs wire a threat response to movement. Then the belt slowly rises anyway. You still don't step. Now the ramp feels higher. Even though the setup never changed, your body learned what starting means. That's what waiting quietly does to you. It rehearses start only when it's right. Repeated practice turns that into reflex. Eventually, even when you want the thing, starting feels suspicious. You don't notice the shift because it happens as routine, and the cost keeps collecting. You wake up with energy, then spend it negotiating with yourself. Condition check, permission, one more look at the clock. Waiting becomes the default behavior. So progress has to fight your trained instincts. Here is the action that breaks the pattern. Write the exact first move you will do today and lock it to a specific time on your calendar. Not sometime. Not after I feel ready. One start decision. One scheduled execution. Next, we make that lock automatic. Let me show you what this looks like in real life, not theory. You've got that promise in your head. I'll work out when I feel ready. And you mean it. But every day, you pay a tiny fee. Not cash. Effort. You keep spending willpower on the first decision, when to start, how to start, whether this counts. So ask yourself, when you're waiting, what are you actually doing? You're running a setup check. You're asking for permission from a mood that never signs an official contract. Now tighten the question. After you feel ready, do you ever remember what it took to get there? Or does your brain skip straight to the next negotiation, the next condition, the next little delay? Here is the before. You open your app, you put on maybe later clothes, you stare at the shoes. You don't begin until the feeling shows up. The feeling doesn't show up. Time passes. You rationalize. You keep coming back to the menu like the game resets every time you respawn. Choose motivation. Press start. Wait again. Now the after. Same person. Same life. One pre-commit that kills the debate. Shoes on in 10 seconds, then start a 2-minute timer. That's it. No move. No bargaining. The first move is loaded before your brain can start simulating excuses. Starting becomes the default action, not a brave act of willpower. The payoff is simple and brutal. You stop paying the decision cost every day, so your runs finally count. If you want this to stick, the next step is to make your first move fit your actual day, not your fantasy day. When it's time, you don't debate. You execute. And after that first timer, you get a new data point. You can start even when the feeling is late. That changes what your brain expects tomorrow. It stops treating starting like a gamble and starts treating it like a rule. You're done outsourcing, starting to a future mood. That's the problem. Not you as a person, just the decision you keep postponing. Picture a tripwire switch in your day. You don't debate it. You don't negotiate with the air. When the wire gets brushed today, something snaps. Action fires automatically. No thinking step in between. Right now, your brain runs the opposite system. You leave the switch uninstalled. Then you act surprised when you still have to decide from scratch every time friction shows up. You keep spending willpower to redecide. That is why motivation burns out at the worst moment. So here is the after. You remove future willpower by changing the decision path. You set one next decision trigger that forces movement instantly. Constraints matter. For today's target, the trigger is in 10 seconds. Shoes on, then start a 2-minute timer. Not when you feel ready. Not after you tidy your head. Not after the day gives you permission. Your measurable outcome is simple. You begin within 2 minutes today. Every time the trigger is brushed. Today becomes proof, not a wish. And here is the shift you can feel. You stop paying the starting cost all day. Starting ISNT ain't gamble anymore. It's a rule. If you miss the trigger, don't try again later. Reset the switch and rerun the first move immediately. That's how you train your system to expect action, not permission.